from this point where they were roughly to the end, I know we have the comparisons of where they are versus where they were, included Rogue, Na'Vi, G2, and Outsiders. And they did technically be Outsiders, but the others were the ones that sort of handed them fate. Outsiders had the toughest run. They had Heroic, G2, MNM, and Wolves, the 4 teams that actually made it to the major with their final 4. This time, it's a lot more straightforward for them. Sure, they've got Rogue coming up, but TT9 and Na'Vi are in the middle of that. If Outsiders take this game, this is the bit that I'm sort of proposing.
I know where you're going.
They could be at the major with
make it to the major.
A much cleaner run, because they weren't that far away last time around.
And I mean, you can see it now as well if you look up the standings, pull them up on your second monitor or your phone. There's only like 3 or 4 points between most of the teams currently in the top 8. So Outsiders, if they take a full-fledged win here, definitely will be doing themselves a favor by putting themselves in the top 4 position, at least temporarily. So yeah, as you said, this could be the turning point for Heroic again.
It could.
It could also be for Outsiders.
Yeah, Heroic don't want a turning point.
No, they don't, because they've had that last stage, and they were not a big fan of it, I've heard.
Would you be?
I wouldn't be, no. You want to go to the major, especially if you were 4-0 up at the start of the stage.
A W7M card. Congratulations, W7M. I believe they're the second team to be confirmed for SI after the results of last night.
So as well, indeed.
Congrats to them and Astralis.
Yeah.
I do my research. I read.
Only those 2 teams that have been opted so far.
Yep, no one else has been confirmed for SI apart from those 2 teams. And
Sprabuni did post something.
Well, he does like to.
Which I'm going to be pulling up as we speak, because I believe it was also about SI probabilities.
Oh, really?
In terms of wins, victories, and their percentages. Oh no, this was the Jönköping major.
Okay.
Well,
there's probably an SI thing posted as well.
I'm scrolling further down, but not yet.
All right. Enough about that. Let's get into this. Outsiders versus Heroic here, starting themselves on bank. These 2 teams, generally, when they've hit heads before, it's gone Heroic's way both times across Border and Cafe over the previous 2 splits, with obviously a couple of different changes in the rosters. So this could be a very good turning point for Outsiders to start. Ooh, right around the corner, but they're not entirely going to divulge the intel there. You can see Uno has some idea of what's going on, but Doom has another. Dug himself in round the back of the pulse. Rask caught missed. Any of the cool on those players charging their way down the stairs itself. The bait was played by Uno, and the trap was sprung by Doom.
I mean, Uno had a drone in there, right? He realized there was players out there. The pole scanner too focused onto the dirt tunnel, and Hume just able to clean it all up. Well done by Heroic. That's a great first start, especially on this bottom floor, which is quite difficult to attack. You've just made it a hell of a lot easier. Only with 1 player left on the top floor now, always in a bit of a hybrid position on those main staircases, but if you look at a utility on the left of your screen, there's only 3 smoke canisters and 2 minutes left on the clock to actually waste here. And that means it's going to be very difficult for Outsiders to hold on to this site.
I mean, that is just absolutely blinkered by what they thought they knew. They had the read on the player playing above the hatch who's since left. They're going for a steady bit of control. They're sort of taking those 2 kills and not pushing the advantage behind them. They realized it's a gift and they're not going to squander it. They may as well still play themselves around the idea. They know what happens if you get a little bit too blinkered onto a single idea. So let's go back to the plan of spreading that idea across the board. Control over the top, over the hatches, is steadily being grabbed and coalesced into their hands. You could see always had an idea about maybe trying to punch a fight here just on the swing up on the bottom of green. Pasha's looking up towards the hatch as well. They want to see if they can try and get a gift of their own. Just 1 catch, put it a little bit closer into a balanced fight.
I wonder if there's any Goyo canisters they have in place, because when the drone just rolled in, I don't see any. And again, I don't see any on Pasha's screen right now as the wall does get opened up. Okay, there's 1 on the desk right there. So there's an extra piece of utility they have to deny. Hasn't been spotted out by the Twitch drone yet. Might be crucial in the end of it.
Well, they've got the pings on the player. They've got the heavy-hitting DMR in the garage position to see if it can get the swing angle. Grizzly, they're going to drop their way on the far opposite side. The kit itself is not too far away from the server swing. They're comfortable. But with 35 seconds, they've got to get more than comfortable. There's the first. Benja finds Pasha on the swing round. There's the take onto the back. Milan can't quite connect, but always does. Onto Benja. They're pushing in towards the side itself. We heard all the canisters pop, and Grizzly pops Milan too. Now with only a single player left, it is a swing round from Heroic. They take the first round.
I really like how Heroic managed to slow it down there. You said it before as well. They swing in, they get 2 for free. No harm done to them. Still 2 minutes 30 on that clock. You slow it back down. You play it methodically. If you start rushing at that moment in time, if you start playing that time game even more so, you'll find yourself in almost guaranteed trouble from time to time. So by them slowing down that game, they managed to localize the last remaining defenders, play around it, make sure they had some synchronized strikes going on, and secure themselves a victory. And that is a skill on itself. You need to be aware of when to slow down, and Heroic definitely wasn't that round.
Well, I guess we'll see if Outsiders can shake off the false start. Obviously, it's one of those problems that they've sometimes had getting into a game and getting themselves sort of caught up with the rhythm. And when they're playing catch-up, they're usually playing catch-up all the way to overtime and suffering at the end of it. They've got to see if they can try and swing some of this fortune, this memento into their favor here. Heroic are a team that does bite. When they bite, it's often fast and it's very aggressive. And Bank is a map that does play very, very well to teams that can be sharp and aggressive.
It is. It's a very big map, right? So if you are on that site quickly, oftentimes the roamers that are left upstairs or down below, they find themselves outside of the playing field in that moment in time, having to retake. So if you're slow, methodical about it from time to time, there is opportunity for roamers to get back towards the site. So you definitely need a little bit of pace here and there.
Uno opening up a bit of a width, and Dan opening up Uno. Drifted a little bit too high there, and the hefty slugs were able to kick through the man. The Buck did a little bit of structural work. Made the window maybe approachable underneath, but no other connection here. Mello playing on the far end of square, hanging on the window and the rappel, waiting for somebody to get a bit of an approach here, but it's a dangerous place to sit too long. That's why they're making sure that nobody's planning a bit of an aggressive swing and jump out. It wouldn't be the first, and it would be far from the 100th, potentially.
Still very occupied with whatever could be in stock. Extra keeper barriers are being set up just to provide some safety towards themselves. Dan looking to die here with the ACS-12. Hatch has been opened up, so there is an escape opportunity. But he knows that they need to get rid of him, because this is directly above the side. They'd like to have the hatch under control. He spotted out a player there, the shoulder just now. Takes a couple of shots before he falls back off. Joom has realized that and will now be taking that top floor.
A bit of a dangerous drop there. Obviously, there's always the caution, the window's being watched, and you're sort of a freebie. So Dan, he's got that rebuilt, restructured. There wasn't quite a heroic player in the position to make that dangerous. Joom is still steadily breaking across the top, and his army's doing the best to rebuild some of the structures. Hold off on the push behind what is often the default plant for a lot of teams, seeing if they can stick it onto the far side of the kitchen edge. There's still a lot of this top work to be done, though. You can see Joom steadying away without the Buck. They're sort of limited in just how much they can get. Benja might have not wanted to be in this position, but the Sledge is going to see if he can start steadying away itself.
He's dropping down that diffuser just in case he does get picked up from any of the verticalities he's opening up. But as you can see, he's opening up into archives, into tellers, just to make sure that that area is clear. That allows him a bit of safety if they attack the bottom of square, which is suddenly starting to shape up. Now, I believe Rask, he is still downstairs on that roam, looking to be ascending any of the staircases that will be pushed later on as Benja gets taken out as he opens up a soft wall. Brings it to his 3 of 5 situation here with Heroic not really having a way in.
Joom has an idea that somebody's trying to rotate their way underneath, but pulls away at the last possible second. Caught in the corner of the fire, but it's Mello that's able to get the first off. Grizzly dropped the hatch and gets one and saves his own life. Look at this. Heroics flooded their way back in. Suddenly it's just always versus the world. Can't quite get the full connection with the player. There's one tucked around on the opposite side as well, stuck in Kansan, but somehow Heroic pull it back with a dangerous drop on the stock hatch. And it just seemed like Outsiders weren't quite ready for that parachute drop.
They bodied themselves through there. They realized there's nothing really they could do in that moment in time. The time was ticking down. All they could use was these hatches to drop and see if they could isolate these players. And, well, finding the kill on the person playing the hatch, who was about to be tossing out a C4. Very important. If that one would have gone off, completely different round, it would have been over. It would have been Outsiders. But Heroic, by brute forcing, which is often the, last thing you can do, you should try and play it strategically. If that doesn't work, you just need to gun it. That's it. You just need to run in and hope for the best. And, well, that one was enough this time around and managed to get those trades in their favor. Find an extra round. Back towards the bottom floor we go, though. Outsiders looking to rerun that, of course. Last time they were here, bit of an oddity there by losing 2 players to just Joom running in, so someone will more than likely be watching that this time around.
They better hope.
I'd hope so.
I mean, it's just one of those sort of moments. Obviously, the Pulse is off the board this time around. They've pulled themselves away. They're going to instead try and trust the gun skill, which, to be fair, it is a team that can rock that so well. But so far, they've just kind of been caught a bit by surprise with the pace that Heroic's locked in, even with the advantage in their favor from some early work from Dan. It just didn't quite have the final contribution and push over the road. But here, very different take from Heroic. They're focusing themselves towards open as the lead in. They're looking for the fight over the hatch. It's still soft. They should be able to get that breached open pretty quick.
The pace here is very quick on the side of Heroic. They've got drones ready to go inside of the open area and the kitchen, so they've taken that quickly under control, and that allows them to start opening up these hatches. That is going to be some very early pressure that will start to arise onto the defenders of Outsiders, and that will mean that they have to pay more attention towards any potential players coming from that top floor. Whereas the rest of Heroic currently very spread out, trying to clear out that very much top floor first so they don't have to worry about that later. After that, of course, they put someone on the staircases, make sure no flanks will come through. And as the rest of Heroic is starting to come quite close, the first hatch about to be opened.
And the last time we saw Outsiders leading in with their defense here was against Wolves, and they only pulled 1 against Wolves. 5 attacks that were locked in, and seems like lessons are learned a little bit too late, Dan, to save your own fire. They're in fact suffering, well, even more from the wrong end of it. That makes any aggression very, very dangerous on the lead-in. Just the sliver of a grenade here can get the catch from Benja, but it's more so anything, really. A scrape of a bullet over a chassis is going to be enough.
It's about 45 seconds. They have saved themselves on Heroic's side because that fire is now gone. That is an opportunity to go for a plant if you do manage to take care of Dan. Playing close towards the actual rotation hole on the reinforcement. A grenade can fix that, and as this serial laser gate has just been denied, grenade soon will probably follow.
Holding close angles and hoping they're once again gifted a kill. They know Heroic can play the quick drop game, and it's just having the awareness and wherewithal to catch them before they pull it off. Uno, it's the default breach opened here, always still has 3 canisters, and with 50 seconds left, that's enough time to at least put a lot of pressure onto the planter. They can dance around it, but it's going to come down to potentially the C4 in the pockets of Dan if he can survive the journey to throw it. Benja, he's rolling the grenade. Grizzly's rolling through. Milan gets the take on the far back. Uno's going for the plant itself. That grenade's being cut down. Dan gets the kill, and the kit isn't planted. Pulls back, and the C4's a little bit too late to the party, but still, another canister pops off around on the swing. 2 left in the pocket. Uno's trying to find a safe place to plant, but they're still held at arm's length. Grizzly is trying to get a bit of a lead in. They've got the hold over the hatches, but without anything else leading Uno in, they're a little bit stuck. There has to be a drive on the far end. Grizzly, he tries to sneak in, gets caught out. The kit once again can't make the journey. 15 seconds. Uno goes on a swing around the door. Joom is caught from behind by Always. They're trying to drive themselves through, but this time, Outsiders were able to hold them off. Uno could not make the journey into the site because Heroic couldn't make the journey anywhere else.
And that's quite a disappointing round end there for Heroic, because if you looked at the round, they managed to take top floor control very quickly. They managed to take office very quickly. Hatch opened up, 3 of the canisters of Goyo gone, out of play. All they needed to worry about was a single C4 and 3 smoke canisters. That was all that was left standing between them and stopping that plant. Now, what they did the last time around is they dropped hatches. They were effective with it. They attacked from multiple different angles. And this time it was Joom descending down the main stairs while walking into a crossfire from both the office and the garage because they were unaware that someone was still in the garage. And that was the safety. Just that one player, I believe it was Rask, playing in that garage, is providing the safety to the smoke to continue tossing out these smoke canisters.
All right, back to open. Back to opens where they're going to see if they can try and get themselves set up. And to be fair, the start of the lead-in was good. It was the rest when everything sort of fell apart. The final 45 seconds and Heroic's mad dash effort was entirely rewarded. Suddenly turning around a 3 versus 5 to a 2 versus 1. What have Outsiders learned here? They'd taken a couple of lessons, but when you're a foot up, it's sometimes a little bit tougher, a little bit trickier to take the lessons on where the things went wrong. You've obviously still got generally the same operator selection. You've got the same ideas of how you can sort of set it up, but this time I'd be surprised if you net anything early off because you're not the only one learning here.
It's a different gun choice now onto Dan. He's not going to go for the big-hitting slug shotgun, instead for the 9x19 VSN. Submachine gun. Bit of a higher rate of fire is going to be easier to pop off these hats to some extent. And that allows them to maybe be a bit more aggressive on the challenge here in stock.
Doom creeping around on the close. There's the bait on the far angle as well. There's 3 players stacked up trying to remove Dan, and he's not going to sit there any longer. He's realized his number is coming and he doesn't want it punched just yet. The break comes across the side of stock. They're still trying to work it out. Another grenade will go over the back behind the push, and now they'll get the call that it's clear. And they can start trying to take a little bit more pressure across the board. Well, a minute passed, and they've forced out a player with at least 2 less deaths than previously. Pasha might be the next point of call. Tucked into Janitors, has the hatch and the rotate as well. The C4 does everything but the kill onto Benja, and that's going to make his fight here a lot riskier.
He's definitely going to go quite low on HP, but as Pasha gets Doom, he gets injured right after and taken out. And as the phone drops onto the ground there, that means it will be hacked by Uno. Gives them full access to the defensive camera, so any bulletproofs that might have been placed, well, they can now see out of them, so you better not be playing right in front of them.
Mello taking up the role of the buck and doing the work that was cut a little bit short last time round, and Pash went for a bit of a gamble from the side of Janitors. I think he sort of expected as time goes on his position's going to become the next point of call and he might be able to strike a bit earlier. You can see Milan is paying a lot of attention towards the hatch itself. The disc's ready to catch anything that might roll and bounce towards the power position played by Rask on the far end, but it seems like quad wall might be the point of focus potentially instead. They still have the means and the needs to try and get a breach across the board. They're sort of fighting against nothing that should directly stop it, apart from maybe the mute jammers. Try and find a tricky angle. They could do a bit of work on it.
Still afraid someone's going to be playing downstairs. A good drone, still in position though. Know exactly where the castle is playing. Rask is playing quite safely though, right behind the bomb chassis. Shouldn't be threatened too much from that window. It is instead going to be the vertical play that might be of more danger to him.
And here it is. The pressure comes from the close window, but it's Milan that's able to drop the kit on the far end. There aren't really any players in a position to get this collected quickly. 30 seconds. Benja's by the quad wall. They've got a bit of control over the hatch, and Mello, he's ready to rotate from archives. They're going for something on the back line, and Mello's able to make a little bit of it work. Dan gets one, always gets one right back. Benja over the bow. He cannot take a step into this fire, but Mello, he's taken a step right into the core of the Lion's Den, pulls out what isn't the gadget he hoped it was. There isn't anything you can really breach here, but they breach you. And there it is, 2-2.
Well adapted again from Outsiders here. Managed to lock them down this time. Not having a double entry opening, you know, that happened. Still had a 1-for-1 trade, which unfortunately gave access to the cameras for the attackers, but nothing really they could get out of it. And again, it is quite a difficult area to take control of, that first floor open area. Some choke points. The hatches are not ideal for dropping either, as they're literally dropping in the middle of the room with many angles watching you, and this time they played those perfectly, not being caught victim by any of those drops coming through. And thus the muscle through did not work from Heroic. And that means it's now currently 2-2. Another first floor site to be played though. As we're headed towards Tellers and Archives. We have seen this site being utilized by the attackers mostly over the last couple of rounds, especially when it took verticality above it to ensure it is clear when they wanted to attack the kitchen and the open area. Well, that's just to get onto the right level.
Yeah, you got to find the perfect.
You got to find the perfect
place.
Because if you crouch, it's too low. If you stand up, it's too high. So you need to crouch to get in between.
It's legitimate use of quick crouch.
Yeah, it is not. It's not bait.
Not the one we usually see quick crouching. We're like, it's testing a crouch keeper. That is legitimate use. What is always this moment here is this is a surprising sight and this is a surprising pace. Look at this. Benja, he's looking for the fight directly. He's hoping he can try and take them by a massive bit of surprise, the same way they struck early on. The pressure's coming through. If Benja's gone undetected, this is what they're doing. Trying to force the player out of stock there. The second Dan takes this drop, he's going to be caught. He's sort of holding on and praying, and there it is, the take round, the reveal. There's a player right underneath you. Very, very well played, Rask. He's looking for revenge, but he's actually looking slightly in the wrong place. There's pings, and look at the sort of presence that's coming over the top. Rask gets the catch on the back, but Benja, he still bites back. They didn't quite get the right man there, Rask, and they pulled themselves out of position. The upper hand is still on the side of Heroics. Can Pasha try and bite back here on the top floor?
Sort of reckless though, just leaving open area all the way open like that. No one there to challenge, and you kind of lose 2 players as a result of it. It's kind of a miracle that they managed to find Uno as a result of it, because that should have been a double opening for the side of Heroic. And now we see some fallback coming through. Milan playing in the elevators, at least going to be locking down the hallway, but the damage is already done. And if you look at all these long angles that Benja now has access to, any drop is just going to be too dangerous as Pasha comes in, finds the kill, takes out Benja, and suddenly the entire open area is back under control.
I mean, it was a gambit play there. Got lucky that the man was on the grenade, whether it was a call or not. I guess it could have been, and then it's not luck, but pure balls, panache, and skill. Here, though, suddenly Heroic, they find a little bit of silence in and amongst the pace that they tried to apply. Pash's doing that home renovation that will give himself a little bit more movement here. They've got the stretch and the swing round. I was going to sort of comment on this site being maybe the lesser seen of any of the four. In the sort of modern play, CEO is often that sort of back and forth, but with the preference of attack together. Right now, it's not always that you see three successful sites in a row. Heroic, they're getting themselves a bit of a moment. Time has been a bit of a killer on the previous 2 rounds for them with the kit cold right inside open. What are they structuring?
Milan just falling off as soon as one of these players coming down. Mello dealing a lot of damage, but not quite getting the kill. Flashbang's being tossed in because he knows he might be double peaked, and indeed always is quite close. As soon as the damage does start to come through, it's definitely going to be a swing coming in from the side itself. The support comes in. Mello will find always. That opens up an opportunity. Joom now here to try and provide some support onto the elevator player, but do they know he's in there?
That's it. It's such a sort of gambit play here for Milan. He has no route out. He's hoping they go fast. It's 15 seconds. There's nobody coming directly above him. Pasha is the line on the rotate onto site. There's the first. There's almost the second. He can't quite get the full connection. The C4 caught on the door, and Mello gets the kill on the back line at the same time. Waited and watched, anticipated, and a pre-fire gives the idea there was a call there too. Heroic. They make the best just. But it's better than the previous 2 attempts.
It is. But we also have to say Heroic were kind of in charge of that round throughout the first 30, 40 seconds. Open area, opening kill, found someone into the small cubby as well. It is only because there was a bit of lack of information up on that top floor, knowing that there was still a player in Janitor about to drop. That basically brought Outsiders back into that round. So that is something we do have to mention. And if only that shotgun had about a meter more range, that would have been around enough for Outsiders as well. But 2-3, Heroic back in the lead, and it's Outsiders back into the basement. Now, we've seen 1 successful round here, Remy, and 1 failure for the attack. Because the question is, which one will we get this time? Again, all those Goyo canisters just stacked up on one another. Easily get taken out by the Twitch drone. You hope someone is watching this time.
I mean, to be fair, with 3 of them separate last time, they're all easily taken out by the Twitch drone that time too. But there is no Twitch drone this time round. There is currently a Thatcher to try and, I guess, drive them maybe with a little bit more pace towards that power position. As the back line, take out the ADS and then roll a grenade behind it. Could be the reasoning. It's, you know, you're sort of trying to piece it together here. It's not that the breach on the walls is anything, you know, struggle, but getting themselves tucked in towards those power position players has been.
Yeah, maybe the Twitch drone has not been successful enough in taking out the ADSs. Of course, the first one was always kind of sacrificed to get 3 of the Goyo canisters. Maybe the EMP grenades will do a bit of a better job. Not to forget to mention, you can also use them from the floor above. You do not need to be on the same level due to the increased range. So it is relatively risk-free for Mello to take out these ADSs temporarily.
All right, Heroic, I sort of want to see the change of pace, because to be honest, 2 of these rounds are ones where you found yourself a bit stuck. Outsiders are battening down the hatches to the best of their ability. But it really is that moment, I guess, where we're still seeing a teething team teething from the side of Heroic. A couple of these rounds are really well put together, the drives are sharp, and they have the awareness and wherewithal to get themselves through it. And then there's moments where it seemingly starts to slip through their fingers just a little. Here, the take was going to be down onto Milan. They've rotated their way out of open. They've dropped off a minute 30, and Heroic is steadily clearing the top 2 floors as they did before. What's going to be the different end to this, Spear?
The last time they kind of struggled as they really wanted to focus down on getting a plant right behind the A chassis. Now, back then it was a bit of fire, a C4, and 3 smoke canisters. There's also a yokai or 2 on the board now, so it's even more utility they need to deal with. They cannot just purely focus on getting that diffuser down on the A-bomb side. They need to make sure someone is coming in from garage. They need to make sure that hatches are being dropped and pressure is coming down from multiple different angles, because if there is safety in the back line, Rask is just going to have a field day with the yokais there. Zuno almost loses his head.
I mean, that was it. It was the close angle, prepped and played and ready to go. You could see Mello was tempted to roll it out, but Pasha does get the follow-up, and that's the kit cold by itself, and only one of the 2 important walls popped. Grizzly still has, I think, some Kairos left, 6, enough to give themselves a little bit of a route through onto the default plant spot. But there's important other places to play. There's that. The Thatcher game I talked about before. They cut out those ADSs, rolled a grenade at the same time, didn't get the full kill and catch onto the player itself. But here's Grizzly stepping up to see if they can try and replicate the breach and the break onto the wall itself. Doom, a slow creep round. He's won one important fight here on the back line and lost the next. There's a fire and almost it. Freebie, and suddenly it's heroic all across the board. Doom pulls back. The Echo drone stops the plant, but it's only the Echo left. Rask gets one, gets swung. And it's a 4-2 half to heroic.
I asked for a bit more pressure coming out from the backside. Did not quite have that, but Joom able to sneak in from below the main stairs, getting the first kill into the vault, and then the Injure with the hipfire last 3 shots onto the Aruni. Difference maker there, because suddenly they need to be dividing their information and their guns towards 2 different positions, and heroic, they find their 4th. And that is the lead they were looking for. And of course, you said it, Outsiders, last time they played this on the fence, only got a single round. They got 2. It's improvement, but I think it could have been 3 in total. And that will definitely be hurting throughout this half, because that is still that 1 extra round they do not need to get now. And that means a full 5 if they want to be taking full 3 points here. A single round available to be, well, slipped up. And, you know, we talked about it before. They have an opportunity to make it to the major. If they win this game against Heroic, that is that turning point that they need to bank on here, because that will push them into a top 4 position. And that means that this half needs to be really good from Outsiders. Their attacks need to be on point.
5 seconds to go.
It's technically an improvement.
It is
from the last time Heroic.
Yes.
Last time Heroic. Outsiders were here. This split. But, as you said, there needs to be more of it on this half. It's exactly right. They took 2 of their attack rounds off the top of my head versus Wolves, and it's seeing if they can try and take more than that. Here, Heroic, they've got themselves held up, stretched across the map, and Outsiders are meeting them with the same sort of stretch all the way across the top of the boards, going for the clear, concerned about a jump out and any of the pressure that might be applied, but that's bank.
It is that big stretched out maps with lots of windows, lots of angles. Like if you put pressure onto one area of the map, it is going to be 2 others that will have pressure on you. And that makes it so difficult. Benja has been spotted there though. That is the Oryx now, no longer being a surprise. Also means that these hatches need to be guarded a little bit better. Benja has not fallen off his spot, by the way. He has 2 ADSs there. He feels quite safe. As soon as those start getting burned though, that's probably the moment he decides to drop.
Yeah, it's a lot of an aggressive hold here, and Heroic's sort of trying to bait them into it. And, well, Outsiders are trying to work it out. They're going for a steady approach. There's the single player tucked around the corner. There's also a All-My disc on top of those 2 ADSs. And this, Grizzly providing all the intel. Benja knows exactly what danger's coming, how much of it, and from where. And, well, now that there's 2 bodies here, they're about to have this. The first catch on the first ADS and the first bit of movement. Though my disc didn't get anything from the end there, whether it got shed out or not, it doesn't matter. Look how much time was wasted at the start of a fight, and they still haven't cleared open.
It's going to be even harder now with these Kiba barriers up, but I believe that these 2 Excars are going to be taking out both. Nope, just one actually. Instantly replaced here by the Aruni of Joom. Still trying to hold on tight towards the hallway there. That grenade is not reaching the point it was supposed to reach, and that makes the job of Milan a lot harder.
I mean, look at this. How much utility just for the position above it. Joom still is able to find one on the way out, and now they can retake this position. The top of the hatch, they still have, obviously, both ADSs there. Joom, the pre-fire is coming through. He doesn't quite hit it. Milan goes low, Joom goes high, and Milan goes through him. But here, 40 seconds, Grizzly with a C4 over the top. Rask caught entirely out, and if a display of a pulse missing the mark was in the first round, there is one finding it.
And Benja's still playing on that Oryx near the elevator. He could be jumping up at any given moment. He feels like to go for a bit of a flank on these two here around the sides that they're looking to get the plan down on. Information will be there. They know exactly where these players are going to be located at. Milan on top of that hatch. Last two inside of the servers as it's a dig in deep from always, trying to get that plan down. Are they aware? Grizzly, all he has to do is go for the swing. He does. Finds the kill. Time is about to be running out. 4 seconds as a full on execute comes through. A quad kill, but it is the last player hiding. Grizzly needing to find that last shot as the cover is on the wall. He does not reach it. It's the ace of Milan to lock it off and find a round on the attack, which was looking so dire before.
Unbelievable play by Milan. The drop on the hatch, the fight around, all of them were stacked up on the corridor. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. They all lined them up, and the last player stuck in the vault, hiding. All he had to do was hit one shot, but the cover was there.
It was huge.
It was huge. And that should not be allowed from Heroic.
That was handed over to them.
Locate and defuse.
The drop on the hatch, they had the cover over the plant itself, a bit of a gambit. They swung themselves in and fell from the heavens of the hatch.
You know, we're talking about a gift that Heroic received in that very first round from Doom. It was just a small gift handed over to them, but made into a catastrophe for Heroic. As Milan finds the ace. And just to put a bit more context to that, the man had one single kill before this round started. He just, like, got... Oh, again, that C4, that could have changed everything as well.
10 seconds left before insertion.
But what a round from Milan there. Went for the drop. Again, sometimes you just need to muscle through. Did exactly that. Because the cover failed. He was playing on the hatch the entire round. And all he had to do was just drop at that moment. There's nothing else he could have done. The plant would not have gone down without his help. He lines them all up, takes them down, and secures the round. And now we continue. Heroic just losing a round like that. Not using a tactical timeout. Believe they still are in full control. And it's outsiders that need to make sure the mistakes they made earlier in the round are not going to be happening again.
43 outsiders. They have themselves a little sneaky take there, but they know that they did not deserve it. And they got to make sure that the next round they take is one that proves that they do, because it might be one that brings them level into this scrappy fight. All of the map control was playing into the side in the favor of Heroic, and then one bad breath and everything is pulled away. The player on the top of white, I think Rask just caught the tail end of them. Yep, there's the pre-fire that comes across. Not directly towards them, but enough to... Well, to be honest, for most teams would put a bit of fear into them, but Heroic have this idea that, well, let's not hand over any territory without at least a bit of bullets being traded back and forth.
Holding off tight angles now. Again, information being fed throughout the rest of Heroic. They know repels are currently being played. There's no one there to capitalize off that. As the drones roll through, trying to find these last players that are playing on that first floor. As the top is about to be taken under control, but there's still a player around on Janitor. Are they aware? Because Dan is in a very risky position. There is a breach coming down as well. Benja could be going aggressive, but he misses the opportunity. But he drops to safety.
I don't know if Always knew how close his life was to being removed there, but I think Benja's going to be kicking himself over not quite getting the connection with a player that could have really taken the wind out of the sails and a big portion of the hard breach out as well. Sure, Pasha's still got a lot of pockets, but you're looking at a lot of walls left to try and break through, and always the danger of C4s and impacts trailing and traveling back over the top. Milan, and at the moment, gets some work done over the top of the hatch. Mello suffers on the back end. He's closer towards the quad wall and ready to see if he can at least try and loose his remaining impact into the fight. There's the concern of the rotate round on the back. Where can these Candelas get played becomes the question when there's only really 30 seconds left for all of these 10 players to play. Doom has the lockdown onto Square. I think that's the steady realization here from the side of outsiders who are trying to scramble for a plan A, pushing them back from the window. The drop on the grenade, will it get a catch? Dan sure does. There's the first, the second. Doesn't quite rotate its way all the way around. The man with the magic glasses, Maverick is, not even Maverick, Warden on the back end is the Maverick of the moment. Grizzly suffers the scrape. 10 seconds, they got to take a drop. Benja gets the first off the back of it. It's a rock down a blind. They're going for the kit. The kit goes gold. And Time was the sufferer before. They're able to just stick it down. Uno with the rotate. Pasha cannot get the win. and Heroic lock in the end of it.
I don't know if you just saw it there, but he went for the pickup instead and was like, no, I don't want the pickup. Needed to redo it, go for the plant. Cost him a valuable couple of seconds, but it was probably going to be ending there either way. And I think the big issue here that we saw from Outsiders is too focused on those hatch drops. Where was the other pressure? Where was Quatwall? Where was the kitchen push? Where was the player coming down from the main stairs to provide some vertical support as they did go for that hatch drop? Because they just dropped in one by one by one. The first gets picked off, the second gets blown up, and the third, well, needs to go for the plant at that moment in time because the time was running out. And those are things you cannot let happen. And that is that one round we spoke about. The one round Outsiders can afford to lose if they want to be picking up a full 3-pointer against Heroic, which would be the turning point for both these teams. For Outsiders to stop their or to start their chase towards the top 4, and for Heroic to potentially signal bumps up ahead again. But we're going back to Archives, a site we haven't seen too much until today.
Yeah, it's not always the top of the board. It's not always the top of people's board. It's sort of found itself in this middling position. I think, obviously, you know, it used to be one of the top 2. It was CEO as the top, and then you sort of pull yourself back down for a long period of time. And how open it is, the control you can sort of get from windows without being in the building means that the gambit is kind of severely limited to just throwing yourself out. It's nothing that Heroic are that averse to, but at the same time, you'll often put a player up there anyway to hold onto Archives. You'll keep the verticality in a similar sort of way. It gives you the chance to rotate back up to cause some danger and sort of hand over the floor and try and take it back and do that back and forth that Heroic like to do. So they have the opportunity here to do it and put themselves onto map point.
Was that a C4 that just popped? That was an impact. Okay, I was going to say that would have been quite a early waste of that. No repelling quite yet, but Milan now receives a bit more pressure. There is going to be Yuno playing down below with a bit of a scope. If he gets in a little bit too close to that window, might see his head removed. Zoom is trying to secure himself up a little bit more in between the castle barricades with an extra Kiba barrier. Phone calls go off. Should be the first indication of players being around. Openings are being made all across the map right here. Grizzly misses the opportunity to find Rask on his way out. Dan is still out here playing with that DMR, dealing a lot of damage. Grizzly goes down, but June will find... No, not June. It's Milan that will find Grizzly instead.
4 versus 4. June takes a huge amount of damage, and I talked about the violence on windows, but it isn't quite settled yet. June, they're locked in, holding on to the swing round onto Banana. Rask is going to try and see if they can lead and put some pressure in from underneath. Caught out on a drone, and Rask catches out. Uno makes the isolation of the Azami feel that much more isolating. Can they see if they can catch the last little bit of damage with a grenade over the top? There's a bit of a rebuild going over towards the side of Kanto, and one for themselves, but this...
didn't go through.
Oh, didn't quite get the catch onto the window, and the Azami can survive for another day.
It's definitely going to be the moment of realization here for June that his position has been noted and realized. He's not going to be able to play there safely anymore. So dug back a little bit towards the side, but needs to be very careful as drones continue going his way. There's a lot of soft walls around him, and now he's definitely going to be stuck because there is a player on those windows holding him. Rask is about to be coming through, and they should know because they just spotted him going down there.
Oh, this is the castle getting broken up. June's able to get a freebie out of the end of it. There's a bit of revenge from Milan. Took the swing onto the Azami, and Milan still leads through. Built on the Bastion he built himself a couple of rounds ago of refusing to let this game go mellow. All that's left with 30 seconds of time and 3 players trying to tick their way closer towards the site itself. There is still the idea of a surprise swing strike. He's tucked off to a side. He's got an angle and got an idea. He's not quite sitting inside the site itself. Instead, on the far side of square, rotating on the back of open, hoping he can get a catch, but the kit is being planted on the far end. He's got to try and rotate his way back round. They've got it covered. There's the first. There's almost the connection on the next, but did not know the kit had already made its way through. A 2 versus 1. Not for very long. Outsiders find their 4th.
Might have hoped there that the top of square was going to be used by one of the remaining players of Outsiders, and was about to be calling it out, but at that moment they dropped back towards the lobby, and it was like, okay, that's a great call. You know that is clear. You can go for that, and they did so as well. And as it's a 4-5, we see a pause coming through.
I believe it's a Heroic timeout. Yep, confirmed. A Heroic timeout. Heroic will be taking their time here.
Just to take 45, let their staff talk to them. There might be some pointers they have picked up on the last couple of rounds. Because they themselves as well, Emmy, want to be locking out their 3 points. We said it before, this was where the turning point started last stage. They need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. They want to be going to the major. We said it before, like 15, 16 points is what you'll be aiming for. They are currently on 10. 3 points, 13 total, 1 more game, and you're in the major. That will be taking place. We can say it now in Jönköping. And they'll be more than happy to go out there, see if they can qualify themselves for the 6th Invitational as well. As Milos would say, the granddaddy of them all. It's a long while he said that, actually.
He does love saying,
Yeah.
the granddaddy of them all.
Especially when he's talking about SI. It's been a while. I haven't heard that phrase.
He'll say it as soon as we get back into death,
I hope so.
if he's listening.
Otherwise, my day is ruined.
Back to lockers. Heroic with the timeout, and probably some of that reminiscing on the absolute hero play that they fell on the wrong side of there. Milan pulled the ace and then has since then found a little bit of a rhythm, and Heroic was trying their best to break it. It should have been their round. It's not even a question of could have or would have, it should have, but it wasn't, and that is that important etch in the top middle of our screens here. Heroic, what are you going to change up? What do you think went wrong?
The thing is, last time they even knew he was on top of the hatch because Grizzly has spotted it before. He checked it. He knew there was someone up above. And yet they all lined up for him and were picked apart one by one. Not quite sure what was taken out there. It seemed to have been some form of projectile. Either way, Benja taking a bit of damage there early on. That's definitely not going to be a big help.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, procs from Benja potentially up in that corner, the swing round. They're doing a bit of damage. Remember how long they were juggling this position that Benja's in before. There's still Doom on the back line as well, who was able to get the early lead-in kill, holding on to beepers too. They've got themselves pockets full of keeper barricades, and they're going to make use of them when the time comes. Hasn't felt that that is yet. I think they're weighing up just where the pressure's coming from, because it is an invaluable resource. It is something that you really want to operate and isolate the same positions that you think they're trying to drive themselves through. They have the one for the swing round as they did before, but with the remaining ones ready for this push.
Actually know that the elevator is going to be clear this time, and it's 2 ADSs that are in there that will really not protect any player as we currently speak. So as Benji decided to drop off, that's kind of given away for free. Keeper Barrier instantly used to block off that line of sight. Of course, can easily be punched out, but is going to be a bit of a risk, and thus 2 Excaras get used instead. Spasha is looking to find a way around to challenge Doom in different avenues.
Wow, there's talking about these army barricades. They're putting the structure in and getting everything remodeled just in time. There's the players and the pressure above, but you're still looking at 2 minutes around that time wasted here by the Heroic players. As we said, things were going well for them. A little bit of damage from the opposite side of the hatch, but not enough to really deter Uno, who pulls themselves back in. They're not quite able to catch anybody from the second story all the way down to the main core hatch. So instead, they've now got to start putting the pressure onto the site itself. Still aggressive positions played by Heroic, and still a bit of a chance here of the Oryx maybe popping up around the hatch.
And I think that's exactly what Grizzly is currently looking for. Is the lobby going to be safe? If it is, what I believe is going to be called out now to get over the elevator, Benja might be looking to go for a bit of an avenue up, but that spot is going to be ruining that plan. That is going to be making sure that Benja is not going to go back up top.
Yeah, they're just locked round on the side there. They don't know if they're holding the elevator angle or what, but it means things are awkward. If they can double time it, well, there's a take and there's a grenade. The revenge comes back against them. They lose. That pulls. Everything has got to be from the air, but you're looking at 15 seconds. So he's up. He's rotating around on the back end. They've got it covered by the Iana. The plant is going down, though. Always has it locked in a 3 versus 3. They've got the cover. They've got the angle. They've got the idea, and now they've got a bit of a problem on their hands, Heroic. Maybe they thought they hadn't quite been able to weasel their way in. Takes a shoulder of damage from the far end, and the heavy hitting side of Dan Uno. He's back up and fighting fit, but still 30 seconds. His army causing a little bit of problems there on the hatch itself. They're watching, waiting from above. They still have Dan playing the long angle with the hefty DMR. 2 players above, and they're going for a 2-person rotate up white stairs to see if they can try and retake open here. The ping of the beepers will give the call to everything they know. They just have to time it, and there they go! Rask with the double, Dan with the last, and Outsiders pull level 5 of 5.
Well done by them. This was way more in control of Outsiders. They managed to take control of what they needed. As soon as the trade kill came down from the elevator, Emmy, they also realized, oh, there is an Oryx on the board. We quickly need to be retaking that position before he jumps up and wreaks havoc. And as Rask had that cover, the plant went down. Uno, the closest member, injured, could not respond. And that's a retake position. And they pull themselves back enough, just enough so they could stop these hatches from being used again by Heroic. And that leaves us in this 5-5 spot. We will be seeing 12 rounds. As you can see, Rask getting a very important 2K there in the end for his triple. But that does mean that we might see overtime. We might just see a clear-cut victory for either of these two teams. But by the way, it currently has been going. Outsiders definitely in favor.
Two rounds now separate both these teams from the chance at 3 points at the start of this game. We talked about how big this game could be, not just for the sort of opponents that they're up against, but how the latter half of both of their seasons shapes up in the final fight towards the top 4 and a chance at a major. Heroic, they are looking at that same position they had before, where they slowly slipped out of that top 4 after a strong start. Outsiders, they have a much easier final 4 games than they did last time round. It could be a difference maker today.
It could definitely be. This could be a decisive game if we look at it at the end of the stage. Now, we do see Always playing on that Fuse. It's going to be very good to see how that gets used. Last time they struggled a little bit when attacking from stock. These charges, they bop in every single direction. That might be just landing right into the right spot to take out one of these players.
Steady bit of control here over the top. Heroic, they've obviously used their attack timeout, but Outsiders used it just as well. Apparently, that last bit of control was really well put together. Instead of trying to find ourselves anywhere else, it's back to open, and it's back to taking out Grizzly first. Pasha able to pull off the engagement this time around without the loss of life on their own side. They're looking up, down through the long arm of that Kanto corner towards the back end. Benja might be the next face to fight, but Doom has a watch down from underneath the bottom of square. You can see they're a bit concerned about the fight and the positioning, and Dan's suffering from 2 different angles, so he's just going to get out of there. Benja suffers just a little bit as well.
Oh, no, he
just walks right in to the fight. A late call and a massive blow. Benja off the board, back turned towards Dan, and he has a habit of getting those kills.
Dan snuck out. He had no clue he was back on the top outside the square. Loses his life, unfortunately, there. Some feet about to be shut down as well from Doom as he walks past into the teller's office. Hopes to go for a bit of a retake, potentially with Uno up under that top floor, because they realize as well it is quite dangerous territory if you lose that. But a minute 15 on the clock. This might be the moment when you need to decide to actually go for a turtle in. And this time we do see Outsiders attacking from multiple different angles. We have them outside of the window. We have them near the small stock room. We have them about to be potentially going through. No, actually, Always with a fuse charge on the quad wall. That is going to be definitely problematic.
I mean, that'll open up the idea of it. Melo's now realized he cannot quite really stop this in the same manner he hoped to. The close roll of the grenade doesn't quite get the catch on the player they hoped was tucked up onto the shelf itself. 40 seconds, 2 bodies are theirs, but it's still a big lock on the site. Dan, he just kept firing. Melo was stuck. Doom finds one back. Rask taken off the board. Uno doesn't quite get the C4 catch he'd hoped. They're focusing up towards square. They have the pings on the player. There's one! Can he get the second? He's going to keep on holding and hoping, but he's done just enough to try and stretch this game back in. Doom, but there's the catch from Always, and there's one back from Uno. Suddenly a 1 versus 1, but Always, he's always there when he needs to be. And now Outsiders sit on map point.
And even though this round still came quite close to the end due to the almost perfectly played last 2-man hold from Heroic, this is why you need to be attacking from multiple different angles. He cannot just all go for a hatch drop 1 by 1 because you just get picked apart. Now you need to worry about all these different angles coming through. You peek at the same time, there's no way they kill you both. And you see that the live rankings at the top of your screens. The second place is within reach for Outsiders. Of course, that will change throughout the day as the other teams that were above them might be starting to pick up some points as well. But you will be clearing Heroic, and that will be a massive one if you've been looking towards that major. And all they need is 1 extra round now. They've had that round where they slipped up. They've had the ace off Milan. And they've had proper team play ever since after, so if they manage to, well, get one more round on the board like that, it is going to be a full 3-pointer they can be very proud and happy
10
of.
seconds remaining.
That's really that moment right now for the side of Heroic. If they lose this and fall down to 4th, well, then they'll potentially fall down to 5th when Wolves play. They'll potentially fall down to 6th when Na'Vi play. That is how the rest of their day could shape up. And at this moment, at this sort of time when things, as we said before, were dangerous before, one round is all that separates them from just trying to carry themselves towards the opposite end. Little mistakes have a big price to pay at points. Outsiders, they are so close to netting themselves 3 points in one of their toughest remaining games statistically. Their run might start here.
Maybe he's going to be taking out the Gemini replicators. Not often something you see.
No.
But just a drone to send through instead to find the information then. He's going to get stunned out as well. Uno looking to go more aggressive now because he thinks, well, that might be a reason for a bit of a face check. But Rask had his number there almost. Managed to find a headshot onto Uno. That could have been a very early loss.
I mean, it might have started the end of this pulling together. You can see that they're trying to play this aggressive game that they've done well before. They have themselves locked in. Rask might be the first focus. There's 2 stories of danger that he's got to go up against. Milan is hoping he gets swung around. Another pop of another EU1D, and this grenade tucked around onto the far side as pressure comes across square as well. They're knocking on the door. It doesn't quite get its way through, and there's a C4 that popped off from underneath. Dan is caught out. A big blow as he was able to pull a couple of big kills previously round. It was the C4 we last saw prepped on a quad wall, and now it got pulled off and peeled into a different engagement itself. A minute 30. Heroic, they've been able to get the first. They're in a good stead. They've somehow made some of these ends a little bit more dangerous than they can be.
Just not to keep it
No,
very
I don't think that's the direction he wanted that to be in.
No, definitely not. Benja now loses his life. That's going to be huge as the Oryx gone again. A whole lot of pressure. They do not longer need to worry about. These hatches will not be jumped back up upon. Joom still playing aggressive though. He is a key factor in this round. If he manages to stay alive here, he could be huge. He could be going for a giant flank. Finding some good points. Is that someone inside? Okay, that's a Gemini. I was about to say, is that someone inside?
No, but this is Joom. Round on the back, wins it out. Cannot just get caught out there, and the drone even had him on the reveal. Swings around with the pistol itself. He's looking for the engagement. It's coming from multiple different angles. He's going to pull himself further and further away. Rebuilds. A little bit of support, and Grizzly on the far end is looking for the rotate. The spray round, but always, as we said before, we can be a bit reliable, but you're looking at 30 seconds. It was very, very well played there by Joom. He has done more than enough this fight. Has he done enough this round? Tucked round on the site itself. 3 remaining players. Mello is another huge one to try and take out. They've got to see if they can try and just do some of the shepherding, push the positions out of place. Rask, he wants to knock on the door of site itself, but he's not the one with the kit. He's tucked around on the corner. Does he know about Uno's position? Do they know about either of each other? Pasha, he's trying to get the lead in. The flashes come around the corner. Doesn't quite get the full bait out. There's Mello finding the first. There's a knife and reveal on the second, and there is OT.
I was going to say, Uno missed the knife initially there, but still managed to lock it up for the MP5. Of course, a silent measure. And it will give us another 2 to 3 rounds before we decide who the victor of this game is and who will be taking the majority of the points home. It is only a single extra point, though. These two teams will be playing for. The winner will be getting 2, the loser only 1. But at least that's damage limitation for Heroic already, because it could have been a full 3. Now it's just at least 1 point they're losing out on. Might be 2, but that would be less painful than a full 3. And again, Heroic kind of expected to win this game against outsiders if they want to be making it to the major. And if this still goes the ways of outsiders, well, at least the point difference of this game is only going to be 1 rather than 3.
Oh, outsiders. How can you try and push it over the line at this moment in time? You sort of look at the runs that these teams have gotten to this situation, and, you know, it's been a little bit up and down here from the side of outsiders. A loss on the first day, and then a win, an overtime loss and a win, with sort of the opposite setup here. Change that overtime loss to an overtime win from the side of Heroic. Technically, they're the ones on a downswing. As weird as it is to sort of say with the positioning, and this would just cement a little bit of that bad attitude. It's down here now. for me to see if Heroic can try and lead this in on their first defense. The pressure's coming across the board. Rask is looking for just some early attention. Smashes open the doors, pulls it towards quad wall. It's been their fight before, but can they try and catch out those loose players first?
As long as Outsiders continues to attack from multiple different angles rather than focusing everything they have up onto that single hatch, I'll be more than happy even if they lose it out eventually. Because, again, it just doesn't work if you go for such a one-dimensional take that revolves around you dropping through the hatch and hoping you don't get picked up. And yes, the last time did get quite close, but there was some small mistakes made on Outsiders' their side, because there was players that have been spotted out, just a little bit of off-timing that eventually led to more deaths than necessary.
They're on the rotate. They're just keeping themselves shy of the angle and hole that had been opened for the long watch down the corridor. But there's always the risk of an Oryx with a rotate up and down, and that's the sort of game and the gambit that is being played right now. Rask, he's knocking on the door. They know that a player's close. Do they know that Rask is here? The spray through, the angle, there's a second one stepping in. They're seeing if they can isolate. The third comes together. Mellow just gets saved there on the tail end. The kill came onto the staircase itself. They tried to double down here, and Heroic have been able to just have that extra player ready for the fight itself. A bit of long-range break now. The 5 versus 3 advantage is into the favor of Heroic on their first defense. This is a massive round for them to see if they can carry it through. Always is able to deliver one more. But can they get the final structure together?
It's at least a bit of a trade, and at least a slight part of the map locked off, but the flank of Doom could still be on. He's just taken out a drone, but it doesn't seem like they're realizing this onto the side of Outsiders. Doom has decided to fall back though. He's not going to be right up back on these staircases, even though it does seem quite safe. Probably thought that because he took out that drone, they will be aware of his position.
That's it, but Doom, ooh, he got himself set up, and there's a reveal always. As soon as the call came through on that player, this played out. There's the mute jammers gone. They can start the wall breach, and it's going to fall all the way across. No way to impact trick this. 20 seconds and 3 versus 3. Mellow could be huge here, but Grizzly starts it off. Takes care of Always. They're being pinged consistently by that bubble, and Grizzly's going to make the most of it. Milan, all that's left once again in a clutch situation for the end of a round. Baits the drop onto the hatch. Hope the player would swing into him. They are not revealing themselves at this point in time. They know how much it cost them before. It's not going to cost them again. Heroic once again, one step ahead, one more round, and they get the OT win.
It was at least 2 or 3 guns aiming at him there as he dropped that hatch. There was no real way he was going to be winning that. And now they'll find themselves just that one round away, as you said, for an OT win. That is 2 points. A very good leading in defensive round. Now up to the attack they go, as it seems like the basement is the site choice of Outsiders. Now, we did see this go quite wrong for Heroic at least once. So they need to make sure they get rid of that utility in time. And again, not just all attack from one side, but have a bit of pressure coming down from the vaults, from maybe the elevator, and also the main stairs or garage. So you can at least divide the attention and not have every single member of Outsiders aiming at you as you try and get that plan down.
It's, I guess, a bit of a moment here to go back to lockers. They trust their hold here more than they trust their hold over open, the other one that they won out. Their hold here that they won was based on time. The first one, they were massively punished, and Outsiders had good control. Some of the best control that they've had across this game was on their very first take here. But twice it was pulled away from them. Outsiders, they know that they've got to at least win one of their defense rounds. It's the only one that matters to them at this moment in time. Changes that come across the board. The Echo Tuck once again. We saw him make an appearance rather than the Pulse instead. And then all the use of the long-range utility that worked so well for them before.
A lot of deniability out there. Uno taking a small scrap of damage, just not worried too much about it. Mellow tries to get into a position to cut down Pash as he rotates, but there's someone down on the main stairs already. It's Benja that locks him off. An entry kill again for Heroic, a massive one.
Very, very pacey there. We could see the pressure was coming across from Uno on the top end, and well, it was just that Outsiders sort of fell victim to the game. Heroic plays super well, which is get a player into position, get ready to catch them, and we'll just force them to move. We'll force the rotate faster and earlier than they expected, and trust we've got the gun swing to win out the gunfight that ensues. Not a lot of teams are sort of ready for that style of aggression, and removing Pasha that early on. It's a massive, massive blow. 2 minutes remain. 2 minutes of time for them to go for the clear over the top 2 floors.
There's plenty of time to get all this cleared out, especially with the amount of roamers that are still there. If you manage to pick up a kill, or maybe even 2, as Jim goes quite aggressive here, doesn't drop, but the down comes through. This will be confirmed as well. He is instantly going to get traded out, though, but that's one less player to have to worry about on the side.
Massively important take there by Always. He has just kept on popping his head up at these massive important moments for the side of Outsiders. They're still one body down. It was almost a 4 versus 4 as well. A scrappy threat through a soft wall can be anyone's game. Grizzly takes a bit of damage there on getting some of the breach, I assume here. They're paying some attention now towards the hatches itself. They're going to open up with the same width they had before. They have all the utility they need to try and cover off their plant itself. They're going to see if they can now, I guess, try and play against all the utility to stop it. A C4, 3 canisters in pocket, and echo drones. Everything that might be a little bit dangerous as those hot pockets, those Vulcan canisters get popped open.
Again, the one on the desk is still alive. Could be shut out from the hatch, I believe, but then taken out. That's a massive pick. That's a C4. Currently not in play until they do get the pickup. So they might want to be quick on this. They might want to get a grenade quickly in place. As Always swings up, finds another important kill vertically. And that is then to be recovered as well. Smoke canisters to go out. And this is definitely a huge time pressure point for Heroic.
Always is doing everything, as I said, to keep the team in the fight. 25 seconds and what seems like a last second rotate, because they know that there's so much utility being thrown this way. They have to pay attention towards the hatches, a vault, or the far side of the staircase, the coverage of the smoke, the C4 over the top, but nobody is currently home. The drop inside the vault, and Rask, he doesn't quite win it out, but Dan does get Grizzly. Uno cannot get the plant stuck. It's Dan striking forward. Uno, all that's left, but we are going all the way.
The 15th round will be needed until we find out who the victor will be. As that pickup, and Always again finding that vertical kill, crucial towards finding yourself that extra time, that extra round, and, well, less worrying as the execute comes through. And now on round 15, we will have a quick rehost. It's a mental reset for both these teams as well. Have a bit of a quick chat, not with your staff. You're not allowed to do that. And Always, again, blocking off. It's going to be talking, doesn't want any lip readers to come along.
Bridesmaid, never quite the major attendee. Then they pick up 2 of the most famous major attendees of all time.
Yeah.
And then obviously a third who's now behind them as the coach. It really is this sort of moment potentially for this roster. And as I've highlighted before, this is a game that is an integral one to that ride, that route through lockers. One more time, our most seen sight over this engagement, and one that, well, that hasn't been Heroic's decent sight. They've won open, they won archives, they lost all of their holds here onto lockers itself. They go with these big holds, they played against the time. One of them should have been theirs, a round that probably haunts them more than any other throughout this split so far.
I do see currently 2 or 3 players off-site for the side of Heroic. If this does get realized by Outsiders, it could have been a very quick-paced round, but I don't think they are currently the team to do so, especially Grizzly trying to get some early information out, knows that there is some first floor pressure, hard language sometimes, coming through. Windows being opened as well, so they know it's going to be a usual take, a top-down approach, where they try and clear every single floor before they start hitting the site. And the more people you do have upstairs, the more time you will be wasting, because the more drones that need to be rolling through, the more utility that needs to be cleared out.
The calls come across the board. Benja, he's on the 2nd story elevator. He's playing above where he previously was. He's going to see if he can try and bait out a little bit more of a time waste tactic on the top floor. Takes the drop as the pressure starts to come across, but always has the option to head up or down. That's the power of the position, and the call now, the pulse underneath. We'll get a bit of the reveal here. All of Heroic is sort of anticipating this bout of pressure. They're just trying to work out where the fight might come from. There's a reveal on a player. And we're going to see a spray through on the soft. Uno takes a huge amount of damage suddenly through the soft wall. Has to pull himself back there and drops off. We can hear a very quick bout of his armies, making sure that they have some safety. The spray comes against the board. Doom is the only one currently left and isn't really a fan of that, so pulls back. The whole Heroic team forced out.
Do still have the Oryx on the board though, so if there is a safe space to be spotted out, we might still see Benja jumping back up. The hatch this time in the lobby has been left soft, so with a bailiff you can quickly open that one up and just jump through and be a bit of a surprise factor. Grizzly still on the cardiac sensors trying to figure out whether or not it is going to be clear, and as soon as he doesn't see anything for a prolonged amount of time, that's surely when Benja comes up.
That's it now, as the pressure has generally got itself formulated on the other side. They can also play against time. A minute left, and the break of any of the gadgetry stopping the progress on the wall itself. Both Selmas are getting themselves popped open, the plant angle, and then the swing round. So they have this, Dan with the lockdown on the far end, but Milan, is he aware that the rotate can come up from the hatch behind him? They're still stacked underneath it, the pop of everything. Round onto the back end, 40 seconds, and another canister ripped and almost ready and raring to go. They're not holding themselves inside the corridor. They've got gold that's giving them all the cool. The rotates come over the top now. Benja, he's going for gold here as Dan is able to take out the first fight. They're holding onto the angles and blinded as always, going for the plant. Rask goes down. Benja, he cannot quite get the angle itself. It's a post-plant situation, but he's still a bit of a surprise factor here over the top of the hatch. The fight over the swing onto blue, pre-fires and gets the kill. The cool will come out on the player itself. A 4 versus 3. Heroic, they have the man advantage. They have it doubled now. They're still driving themselves across. Milan's looking for the fight. It's Dan on lockdown with a heavy hitting rifle. He cannot quite get the full connection. Just Milan left. Once again, in this clutch situation, the Azamis have kept him at bay from the hatch. He's got to go for the drop. He cannot make it. Heroic somehow hold on to a game that still just keeps them trailing and tackling hard, but Outsiders, unfortunately for them, cannot get another full fat win.
Outsiders, they started off that round so well as well. I mean, they found Uno, they found the smoke, a lot of the time waste gone, but at that moment in time, at the exact same moment in time, Benja jumped off.